Jessica Opare had always been fascinated by how small, everyday actions could reveal big lessons about life. As a motivational speaker based in Atlanta, Georgia, she traveled across the United States, giving talks that inspired people to see deeper meaning in ordinary situations. One warm summer afternoon, she found herself at Piedmont Park, invited to speak at a community picnic. The park was alive with the laughter of children, the hum of conversations, and the sound of birds moving through the trees. Families spread colorful blankets across the grass, and tables were filled with food and refreshments. It was the kind of scene that reminded Jessica why she loved connecting with people. As Jessica prepared her notes for her short talk, she noticed a young woman nearby named Emily Parker, who had recently moved to Atlanta from Chicago. Emily was bright, friendly, and thoughtful, though a little reserved. She was chatting with a group of friends while holding a paper cup, standing near a refreshment table where pitchers of cold water were placed. Emily reached for one of the pitchers but paused before pouring. She glanced at her friends, looked down at the cup, then smiled gently before finally pouring the water. The action itself seemed so ordinary, yet to Jessica it carried a much deeper meaning. That evening, when Jessica returned home, she couldn't stop thinking about that small pause Emily had made before pouring the water. It reminded her of how people often hesitate before expressing what they truly need. Jessica sat down by her window with a notebook and began to write. She scribbled a line that would later form the heart of one of her most popular speeches. Life is full of moments when we want to pour water, but we hesitate. Sometimes, it's not the water itself, it's the moment, the courage, and the hope that someone will notice. Over the next few days, Jessica developed this idea into a story she could share with her audiences. She thought of how many times people in everyday life hold back because they are waiting for the right opportunity, waiting for permission, or waiting to feel understood. Pouring water became her metaphor for action, vulnerability, and honesty. She recalled her college years at Boston University, when her roommate, Sarah Johnson, often stayed up late studying. Sarah was hardworking but rarely asked for help. One evening, Jessica noticed Sarah sitting with her books open but not turning the pages. She tapped her pencil, shifted in her chair, and sighed quietly. At the time, Jessica had not realized what Sarah was really asking for. A listening ear, a moment of encouragement, or simply the comfort of not being alone in her struggle. Years later, Jessica recognized that Sarah had been waiting to pour her own water, silently hoping that someone would notice before she spilled over. Jessica carried these stories with her to every city she visited. In New York, she spoke to a group of young professionals about how important it was to notice when colleagues were holding back in meetings. In Houston, she addressed a gathering of families about recognizing when loved ones were silently asking for support. In Los Angeles, she spoke to students about courage, the courage it takes not only to pour water, but to admit you need it. At first, audiences would laugh when she began her story with something as simple as a pitcher of water. But as she unfolded the layers, the laughter would fade into thoughtful silence, and soon people would nod in agreement. She explained that when someone wants to pour water, it is rarely just about thirst. It is about readiness, about testing whether others will acknowledge their needs, and about vulnerability. The pause before pouring can reveal uncertainty, just as silence in a conversation can reveal unspoken feelings. Jessica encouraged her listeners to pay attention to these pauses, because they often speak louder than words. As her speeches gained attention, Jessica received countless messages from people across the country. A woman in Dallas wrote to her saying that after hearing Jessica's talk, she finally realized her mother had been quietly struggling with loneliness. By simply sitting with her and listening, she gave her mother the chance to pour out feelings she had been holding back. A young man from San Francisco told Jessica that he recognized the hesitation in his fiancée's eyes when they discussed their future. Because of Jessica's words, he stopped, listened, and gave her the space to share her fears. Stories like these showed Jessica that her simple observation at a picnic had grown into a lesson that could touch lives everywhere. Emily herself eventually heard about Jessica's speech. She reached out one day, smiling as she explained that she had never thought twice about her hesitation at the picnic. "I guess I didn't realize it meant anything at all," she told Jessica. "But knowing it inspired people to pay more attention makes me glad I was part of that moment." Jessica thanked her, explaining that it wasn't about the water, it was about the humanity behind the pause. Jessica often ended her talks with a reflection that stayed with people long after the event ended. If you want to know when she wants to pour water, look at the details. Look at her eyes, her pauses, her small gestures. Life is not made up of big moments alone. It is shaped by the little signs we often overlook. When we notice, we build trust, kindness, and connection. And when she finally pours the water, celebrate her courage, because it means she chose honesty over silence. From Miami to Seattle, her message spread. People learn to look more carefully at the small signals in their relationships, to respond with empathy, and to appreciate the courage it takes for someone to share their needs. The story of Emily at a picnic in Atlanta became a symbol for awareness, compassion, and connection. And every time Jessica stood before an audience, she carried with her the reminder that even the simplest gestures could teach the greatest lessons. For Jessica, the journey was never just about speaking, it was about listening. She believed that behind every silence, every hesitation, and every pause, there was a person waiting to be understood. That, she explained, was the true meaning of knowing when someone wants to pour water.